One students, welcome to part 2 of this video covering lessons 10 and 11. Okay, here is the synthesis for what I just showed you in lesson 10. Okay, we saw equations in two different forms that represented the same constraint. Okay, we had x plus 4y equals 28, and this is what they're giving you now for this situation, and negative 1/4 x plus 7 both represent the games and rides that a student can go on with a fixed budget. Okay, so we get two different pieces of information about each one of these situations. Okay, in the case of standard form, which is this equation, x plus 4y equals 28, what do we know? Well, we can see how much money the student has to spend, and we can see the cost of games and the cost of rides. Okay? In this form of an equation, y equals mx plus b, or slope-intercept, we get different pieces of information. We get our vertical intercept, which is how many rides the student can go on if they don't play any games. Okay, and we also have the slope of the line, the rate at which her money gets spent on games. Okay, so like I said, this says how much money she's got, and this is the cost of each thing, games and rides. Okay, this tells us how many rides she can go on if she doesn't play any games. That's 7. Okay, and it also tells you the slope, the rate at which she uses up her money on games. Okay, and the last thing they want you to realize is that the easiest way to graph an equation in standard form is to take turns asking yourself, okay, how many games can she play if she doesn't go on any rides? Okay, and then you turn around and say, how many rides can she go on if we take the games away, if she doesn't play any games? Okay, so that is the point of lesson 10. Now let's go to lesson 11. Okay, so in lesson 11, we're taking what we just learned about relating a graph of a line to two different forms of a linear equation. Okay, so now we're going to go deeper into that. That's what happens in lesson 11. Okay, so pardon me. The warm-up here wants you to rewrite each quotient as a sum or a difference. Okay? So you have choices. You can either divide both of these terms by this 2, so it'd be 4 divided by 2. You can see over here on this side in the teacher notes, you get the answers, so you can check yourself. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Okay? Or you can pardon me. Or you can multiply by the reciprocal of these numbers. Okay, you have choices. So that's how you do this warm-up. So the first activity, they are going to give you 2 different situations that you've already looked at in another lesson. Okay, here you have one of the tank lessons where we were emptying a tank, and here we've got the figs and almonds for Claire's snacks that she was putting together. Okay, so they're going to tell you here that this first graph represents the relationship between the gallons of water in the tank and time in minutes. Okay, so we can see that where on the graph is the 450? It's up here. It's the vertical intercept. Where can we see the minus 20? You can see the minus 20 in the slope. For every 2 minutes, for every minute, it goes down 20, and you can see that. Here's 1 minute, you go up here, that's approximately 430, a little bit more than halfway in between these 2 hash marks. So you can see the slope, okay? And what do the numbers mean? This 450 represents the starting number of gallons in the tank when they started emptying it. And the negative 20 represents the rate at which the gallons are leaving the tank. 20 gallons a minute. Okay? So here you see that this graph is in standard form. It's different, okay? It's not relating gallons and minutes. It's relating the amount of figs to the amount of almonds that were bought at a store, okay? So you don't see the quantities on this graph the same as the other graph. Okay? So the way that you have to approach this problem is if a classmate says, wait a minute, I don't know if this represents this situation because I don't see a 6, a 9, or a 75 on the graph. Well, the way that you would fix that for your student, for your fellow classmate, is you would say, hey, how many pounds of almonds could she buy if she didn't buy any figs? Okay? So if she didn't buy any figs and she only bought almonds, she would have 75 divided by 6. And if you divide 75 by 6, you get this number right there, 12 and a half. Okay? Then you ask yourself, all righty, how many pounds of, oh, I'm so sorry. I said that exactly backwards. If she only bought almonds and she didn't buy any figs, then it would be, yeah, no, I was right. 75 divided by 6, okay, which is 12 and a half. On the other hand, if she only bought figs and didn't buy any almonds, the 6x would go away, right? And we would divide 75 by 9, and we get a little more than 8. Okay, that's the way that works out. So what a standard form graph tells you are your vertical intercept and your horizontal intercept. The other graph tells you your starting point and the slope. How fast are your quantities changing? All right? So we're almost done with this lesson, okay? Here's the synthesis of it, okay? So let's suppose Claire, so we're back to our almonds and figs situation. Let's say that she spent a different amount of money, but the price was the same, okay? So here's the equation that models her constraint of $108 and the cost of almonds and the cost of dried figs. Okay? So here are two graphs that might represent that situation. Which one could be correct? And if you look at this one, this one doesn't make sense, because what this says is the more almonds she buys, the more figs she can buy. And that doesn't make sense. It's a trade-off, right? The more figs she buys, the fewer almonds she can buy. And the more almonds she buys, the fewer figs she can afford. Okay? So this graph B would model the situation. And how do we find the vertical intercept? Well, for a standard form question, you have to make your x-axis disappear and then just find the number that goes on your y-axis. If you want to check your horizontal intercept, then you need to make your vertical intercept go away and just solve for your horizontal intercept. So thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. I hope this was helpful.